Hi everyone, how are you today? In this video, we're going to be talking about the first part of Kristin Lavransdatter by Sigrid Undset. Undset was a Norwegian author of the early 1900s. She actually won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1928. And this trilogy, this historical fiction trilogy, was first published in 1920, and then I should say the first book was published in 1920, and then the second and third books were published the following 2 years. I've seen this quite a bit around the internet, and a few people have read parts of it or all of it, but most people I think read the first book primarily. It is a very long novel or set of novels, and it follows the life of this girl named Kristin who lives in the 1300s. And so it is historical fiction, as I mentioned. And I'm not going to get into any spoilers here. I'm just going to go over the major plot points, characters, and just give you an idea of whether this is a book you might want to read. So yeah, there are some nice maps in the book of Norway and the regions that Kristin travels around. And I actually didn't end up using the maps a whole lot because the story does center a lot on the characters. There's not any battles or anything in this first part, so I didn't really feel a great need to be following along with the geography, but it's there if you need it. So, best way I thought of describing this was sort of like the Little House series by Laura Ingalls Wilder. This book starts out with our character at a pretty young age. She's a young girl, and like Laura Ingalls Wilder, she really admires her father, who is Lavrans, so daughter of Lavrans. And the book talks about her experiences as a child, her relationship with her father and her mother, and just these different experiences she goes through while coming of age, because, back then girls got married a lot younger than they do now, so she had a pretty brief childhood. I'd say the first part of the first book kind of covers that, and then the second and third parts being more about her relationships with different young men, her arranged marriage or betrothal, and this one man that she really falls for, and how that relationship plays out. So yes, there's a lot of romance in this first book. Probably, for me, kind of a weakness, but I will say that for historical fiction, this is very well written. We really get to know each of the characters, and they all have different strengths and weaknesses. For example, Kristin's father is a really good person. He tries to take care of his family as best as he can, and he is a very enterprising person, so he really tries to improve their quality of living. And Undset goes in depth into community, culture, religion, and just the kind of things people were thinking about back then. I didn't notice a ton of anachronisms, although there was one scene that could be a bit anachronistic. But by and large, this was a pretty seamless historical fiction novel. So yeah, we get that side of the father character, who is a major character, and we also see his, his other side, which is that he follows cultural norms to the letter, and that includes choosing his daughter's husband to be, and trying to set that up to his liking, not necessarily her liking. But what I did like was there was a lot of nuance to all of that as well. In fact, I would say that was the strongest piece of conflict in this first part of the book. When the plot switches more towards Kristin's romance, her quote true love romance, I feel like it did kind of go into almost romance genre territory, and there were some really kind of bizarre plot twists that I don't want to give away, but I felt like it was sort of in the style of Thomas Hardy, but just a little less compelling, I guess, a little more sensational, which I didn't really care for. But let me talk about some of the highlights from this book, which I have in my commonplace book we talked about a few videos ago. Let's see here. So, and you'll probably see some notes from other books, but yeah, so again, great characterization in the book. We get to see how Kristin's worldview expands as she gets older and meets more kinds of people. So that was very interesting because she's she grows up in a highly religious family, but as she gets older, she starts to learn that not everybody is as upright as they seem, and there are other perspectives on how you can live your life, which she gets from people other than her parents, and that has mixed consequences. Oh, I really liked this quote. Let me read this here. It's page 45. And again, kind of going into that expanding worldview, it fell like a terrible burden upon her when she realized for the first time that people could have such different opinions about so many things. And not just evil, godless people disagreeing with good people, but also good people, such as Brother Edvin and Syra Eric, or her mother and father. She realized that they too thought differently about many things. And this is just a really good, relatable quote. And again, it mentions too the religious figures, which are pretty influential in this book, and we see, some religious characters that are more, I guess, culturally minded or focused on, following the rules, and others that are maybe less legalistic or more focused on, the meaning of the law versus the letter of the law, that kind of thing. So that was kind of a good portrayal of religious figures that you don't necessarily find in other books. So yes, I enjoyed how this book explores the human condition. I liked the simplicity of style. Even though this is a long book, the language is fairly simple. I think pretty much anyone can pick this up and read it. You don't need to feel intimidated, and that's the 1920s style shining through, but also the translator did a great job keeping it readable. Another great thing about this book is that it does sort of show you things as they're happening almost in real time. So when certain tragic events happen, it happens very suddenly in the book. She doesn't expound too deeply on it, but we do see those effects carry on in subsequent chapters and sections of her life. So that's pretty cool. And again, kind of reflects real life. So in a sense, it's really hard to criticize this book. But I will say I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping. I didn't really connect to any of the characters, any of them, honestly. Which was really sad because I think it's well written and I can't find any enormous fault with it, honestly. It just didn't, something about it really didn't connect with me. And it's not that I can't relate to the characters, because I actually could relate to Kristin on a couple of occasions. She does have this one fatal flaw, and what it really is she doesn't learn from her mistakes. She makes the same mistakes over and over again. So when she finally meets this guy she really is attracted to, there's actually a lot of red flags with this guy, but she just ignores them. Whenever things go wrong, she blames herself but doesn't take responsibility at all, or not in a way that corrects her course, right? So it's really difficult to read in that sense. I mean, because you really feel bad for her, but at the same time, she's not course correcting. And yet she's very self-aware and self-conscious that she's going through these problems and that she's made some bad decisions. She even says so herself. So I think that makes her a difficult heroine to connect with. And while there may be some truth in that type of behavior, it just doesn't, like, at that point, it's like, she's been fooled not once, but twice, right? And just keeps letting herself get fooled. So, truth be told, I'm not super interested in reading the other two parts. At least I'm not, I haven't even started them yet, even though I finished this book a week or two ago. And I think it really is because I don't feel this deep connection to Kristin or any of the other characters. Actually, I thought one of the more interesting characters was the guy she was betrothed to, who wasn't even a great character himself, but something about his portrayal was a little more compelling. But I don't know, in some senses it is predictable, because if she continues down this path of making the same mistakes over and over again and sort of digging her hole deeper and deeper, I don't really, it's not going to end well, and you can kind of predict what's going to happen. So, I don't know. I do intend to finish this at some point. I just wasn't inspired to finish it right now. So that's all I had for this review. Let me know if you've read it, your thoughts, or actually just any historical fiction that you enjoy. I used to read a lot more of it, but have not really gotten into it recently, so this is kind of a nice return to that. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.